Hello, everyone. My name is Apostate Aladdin. I hope this live stream finds you well. I'm joined by my cat, as always, Apu. And today's live stream is going to be very different than most of the previous ones that I've had. So I'm a little bit nervous, to be honest. It's not something that I usually do. And I've taken some notes because there's a lot that I want to say today, and I want to make sure that I don't miss any of it. So, first, to begin, if you don't know me, if you don't know what I do, I'd like to explain a few things. So, first of all, my name is Apostate Aladdin. An apostate is someone who has renounced a religion or political belief or principle. I believe that's the definition of it. So, in the context of leaving the religion of Islam, it's an ex-Muslim. It's a murtad. That's the Arabic word for it. A kafir maybe, but a murtad specifically means someone who has left Islam. And that word is often used as a slur, especially in Arabic, especially if it's pronounced a certain way with a certain emphasis. So the reason why I call myself Apostate Aladdin is, for one, is to take back that label, is to not use it as a slur. And it also is descriptive of who I am in the context of this channel. There are a lot of people who have joined the channel recently or have come across my videos recently, and welcome, welcome to the channel. But especially believers who might come across my content for the first time, and they would wonder who I am, why I'm here, what my motivation is, and so on. And I've spoken about most of those things in bits and pieces all over my videos and live streams, but I don't think I've ever put it all in one place before. I used to have a video where I introduced people to my channel, but it was pretty short. So I think it's important. I think it's important to tell you who I am, especially if I'd like to reduce the amount of preconceived notions and misunderstandings about apostates in general and about someone like myself, who is not only someone who has left their religion, but is out here talking about it and is often misconstrued what I'm doing as hatred or as vilification of people, when it's actually, I would argue, quite the opposite. So hopefully today's live stream would help give you an idea of who I am and why I'm doing this. So the title of the video and the thumbnail are obviously very clickbaity. And that's on purpose, not because I want to get the most number of clicks, but because I think it's more productive when people do search that term. I mean, I think one of the first things that you would get as a suggested search on YouTube, if you write Apostate Aladdin or Apostate Prophet or any other ex-Muslim YouTuber, would be exposed or something like that. So yeah, sure. Let's have the people who look up that kind of phrase or who click that phrase come across this video instead, because I think this does a much better job of humanizing us, and myself included, than whatever hit pieces would be out there. And I try to avoid those or avoid paying attention to those. So anyway, no, this is not a face reveal just yet, and maybe never. Hopefully, I am never forced to reveal my face. But perhaps in the future, if I feel like it would be really beneficial for what I'm doing to show my face, that may happen. But I don't foresee that happening anytime soon. All right, what else did I want to talk about? So, for the first time, this live stream is almost entirely about me. Even though I deliberately make this channel less about me and more about the topic and other people who call, for many reasons, which I can elaborate on later. But today, to celebrate us getting to 15,000 subscribers, 16, I suppose now, and to inform you more about me and to make this a bit personal, I'm having this live stream. So I'm not taking any calls today. I am not answering any questions about Islam, none of that kind of stuff, which I've never really posed myself as an expert on Islam or tell people, hey, call into my live stream and get my fatwa on this or that. That's not what I do. But if that's what you're hoping to get, you're definitely not getting it today. And you're not getting it most days anyway. But I might be taking some comments or questions every now and then. But for the most part, I'll just be talking. I've made videos in the past that are very personal. Like I made a video a few weeks ago or over a month ago about my experience with the Islamic hell. It was a very personal video, and I tell you exactly how I felt. And So my reluctance to make my videos personal is not that I don't want to share who I am, or that I want to keep secrets from people, or that I'm pretending to be someone I'm not. I think my personality shows in my conversations. There's dozens and dozens of hours of me talking to people, and you can't put on a face for that long. You really can't. So I never really tried to. But I don't make this channel about me because it really isn't. This channel is supposed to be a safe haven and a representation of ex-Muslims. If I make it about me, like if I have my face out, for example, it's a lot more tied to the real person that I am, not just the Aladdin character that you guys get to see and interact with. I would feel a lot more hurt when I get personal comments if it was actually about me. But I know that when I have a disguise on, that's why I wear a mask. When I have this, this look on, and I get specific personal insults, I understand that it's not really about me being a bad person or anything. It's about certain critics and people who oppose me. They just archetype a person like me. They have certain insults and critiques that they would always level against someone, no matter what their face looks like, no matter how they speak. Um, so that's one reason, is to separate it, to avoid ego getting in the way of my videos, of my interactions with people. So though it does feel very personal, at the same time, it affords me a level of protection. um, there's also, obviously, I have to hide certain details about where I live and things about my personal life, because I wouldn't want someone to find out my identity. Because unfortunately, when you talk about Islam in any way that is not favorable, you are more likely to get attacked, sometimes even physically, for having such an opinion and voicing it out loud. Without getting into the details, there are a lot of Islamic precedents, religious precedents, for actually harming someone, according to the law, who fights against God, or, spreads corruption, or however you want to phrase it. But even when it comes to, vigilante justice type attacks, unfortunately, we've seen far too many of those. So for my safety and for the sake of people in my life, I have to hide a lot about myself. Um, but not because I want to. And I still do make, like I said, I still do make very personal videos, and today, I guess, is one of them. Um, yeah, so I'll answer questions, about some questions at the end as well. And this is not exactly a structured live stream, but you might find some loose structure in it. Um, I'll tell you more about that in a second. I first thought about making this as a post. Like, my first inspiration for this was a text-based post, thinking, okay, we've gotten to 15,000 subscribers. This is a great milestone. I should tell, my followers a little bit about who I am and how things are going, because as some of you may know, last year I had actually dedicated myself to doing this full time. So I wanted to give everybody an update. And at first I even thought, let me just, do this as an update for patrons and YouTube members. And then I thought, I care about my patrons and YouTube members, but I feel like everyone needs to know this. So I decided to do this a live stream instead. So let's start by who I am. My name is Aladdin, if you haven't figured that out already, and it's a pseudonym. I'm in my mid-20s, let's leave it at that, and I am from an Arab background. A lot of people mistakenly accuse me of claiming that I'm Saudi, like a Saudi Arabian national, which I've never ever said was the case. I grew up in Saudi Arabia, as did a lot of Arab people who aren't Saudi, but I am not a Saudi national and never pretended to be. And thankfully, I'm not, because I feel like I would be a lot more worried if I was. Um, I grew up there, and I grew up as a Muslim. And I've told this story many times, but the short summary of it is, I was a very dedicated Muslim who actually was curious about the religion from a very young age. Compared to a lot of my peers, I wasn't always the most religious one in the group or in the class, but I was definitely in the top. Um, and sometimes that made me a bit of a buzzkill, but sometimes I would go along with the flow and do things that are a little bit more haram and then feel bad about it. But most of the time, I was a goody two shoes, good kid. And I had a unique experience compared to a lot of believers because my parents decided to teach me Quran from a very young age. So Arabic is my first language, which means that what I was reading, I understood more of it than someone who doesn't understand Arabic would. But obviously, I didn't get everything. There's a lot of words in there that aren't even in the Arabic language anymore. There's a lot of context that's missing. So it wasn't like I was understanding every verse that I read or memorized, but there were bits and pieces that I was picking up on. And it was like I mentioned before, that made it more present in my conscience and my subconscious than other people. Like, it wasn't just that I was remembering God and religion between, all 5 prayer I mean, every prayer of the 5 prayers of the day, but also in between. It was something that was constantly on my mind, and it wasn't forced on me any more than the average Muslim person had religion in their lives present. Like, it wasn't really that I felt that I was forced to be more religious than other people. It just made a lot of sense to me. If Islam is describing reality, why wouldn't I want to know about reality? It's I I was always curious about a lot of things. Like, I'm curious about science, and Islam, though not exactly is science, or there are a lot of claims now that it has to do with science, but it doesn't. I just saw it as a description of the metaphysical side of life. So of course I have to pay attention to it. Um, Chemistry is interesting and cool and flashy and all that stuff, but at the same time, isn't it more interesting and important to know what to do and how to act so that you don't go to eternal hell and so that you go to eternal heaven? So it was always a very important thing in my life. And sorry, I need a second to collect my thoughts and also keep up with the live chat. Yeah, so it was always a very important thing in my life. And I always had questions about it, not out of doubt, because again, I lived in a place where everyone around me was Muslim. I knew of the existence of other religions, but it was all, barely a surface level understanding of who they are or what they do. I might have met a Christian or two, but in my head it was just like, oh yeah, those are the people who follow the wrong religion, but it's close enough. Like, they maybe they'll go to heaven. They're people of the book. Who knows? Hindus, all I knew about that at the time was cows, worshiping cows. And I'm sorry if anyone's offended by that. I'm just relaying um, what I learned when I was young. And I haven't really met or interacted with a lot of people from other religions. It was just the default setting. Everyone is a Muslim. Other people exist. I've seen movies, I've seen representations of them, but they're so otherworldly that you don't actually feel that they're real. I don't know how else to describe it. And when I did travel eventually and I did come across non-Muslims, that's when it really, even before then, but that's when it really started setting in. Those people are real, and they're not stubborn disbelievers who want to go to hell because they like sinning. A lot of them believe in heaven and hell, and they think they're doing what's right to go to heaven and hell, or not hell. And a lot of them don't believe, and they actually don't believe. Like, they're not doing it to give us or God the middle finger. Like, I grew up with this very, very egocentric view of life, that Earth is the center of the universe, basically, and Mecca is the center of Earth, is a myth that I used to believe in, or the Kaaba specifically, and that everyone is like jealous of Islam or denies Islam. But as I grew up, I realized that a lot of people never gave it a second thought, just like I never gave Hinduism a second thought. It was just in my head, the wrong religion, right? All that aside, I had questions that didn't have to do with other people going to hell or why do other religions exist or non-religious people exist. I had questions about what I was reading in the Quran, and what I was being taught about religion. And often the answers would be either unsatisfactory or presented as a very complex thing that I just don't yet understand. And I grew up a very shy, non-confrontational person. So I wouldn't really push back too hard, especially when I genuinely trusted the people who were giving me this information, be it my Quran teacher, be it my parents, be it, the sheikh, whoever. I always just assumed, okay, those people are talking about the ultimate truth. I just don't get it. We'll push it for later. And then eventually I left Saudi Arabia and I went to study somewhere else. And I was really struggling to keep my faith because I was constantly reminded that it's one thing to just go through the motions when everyone around you is Muslim. It's a whole other thing to be the only one going through it and constantly being reminded that all those people are going to hell because they don't know the right message. How can I tell them the right message? I wasn't keen on da'wah or on you know, I wasn't keen on being the one to get as many people to join Islam because I want brownie points or anything of the sort. I wasn't keen on challenging people's beliefs or getting in people's business. That was never my motivation at all. I just thought, man, it sucks that I get a shot at heaven and I myself have a lot of questions and I don't understand. If I tried to explain to them what's in my head, they wouldn't be believers. So how is it fair that I'm a believer despite being very confused, not because of lack of research or lack of understanding, because this stuff is indeed confusing. I started to think if I were to phrase this to someone who's an outsider, um, what would make them believe? Would they believe what I'm saying? Do they have any good reason to believe what I'm saying? I realized it's all the same, just the other way around when it comes to other religions. And I struggled with that for a long, long time. And it didn't really even kick in my head that it's a possibility that Islam is actually false. This entire time I thought something's wrong with me. This world, something might be wrong with this world, but Allah said there isn't anything wrong with his perfect system of judgment. So what am I not getting? Eventually, a few years ago, I really had to dig deep to figure out once and for all, do I actually believe? Am I a Muslim? Because people would ask me when I meet new people, "Oh, are you a Muslim?" And they ask that to, to be nice and to accommodate for my beliefs or my dietary restrictions or whatever may be. And my answer started to be a very soft yes, and then gradually it's complicated, is what I would say. I would still adhere to the dietary restrictions and all, but I felt like people didn't have to walk on eggshells around my beliefs, and I wasn't even sure if I had them or not. And it was only a few years ago that I dug deep because I felt like I was getting to a stage in my life where not only am I transitioning into adulthood, like I didn't really feel like an adult when I was in university, to be honest. I felt like an extension of a high schooler, if that makes sense. I get to this point where I'm thinking I'm now going to be making decisions that involve other people in my life. What do I tell them? Like say I have a partner eventually or a wife. What am I doing about that? So if I marry a Muslim person, am I just going to continue to behave as if I don't see any problem with any of this, as if all of this makes sense? Am I going to teach this to my kids if I have kids? If I marry a non-Muslim, am I going to ask them to convert so that they, so that it goes through? Am I going to pretend with other people? And that's when it really sunk in that not only were all my doubts and questions valid, it was as clear as the sun to any non-believer that this stuff doesn't make sense. And it was shocking, to say the least. It wasn't easy. And it's not the kind of relief that a lot of people accuse believers or ex-Muslims or ex-believers of having, because they think you left religion so that you can sin without any guilt, or so that you can live your life however you want. This is basically an accusation that you're crazy, because only a crazy person would knowingly trade in the eternal afterlife of all the hedonistic pleasures you could possibly want for however many decades of, you know, whatever hedonistic pleasures you can get in this life. And for many ex-believers, the hedonistic pleasures that religion would uh, ban from you are not even easy to do once you leave the faith, because you still feel the guilt. You still feel like, is this actually morally wrong, or is this just wrong because religion said so? So it wasn't an easy transition. It wasn't a relief at first. It was a shock. It felt like I was lied to my entire time. It felt like, imagine if you wake up one day and your parents tell you you were adopted, right? It it's somehow even worse than that, because you could be adopted and your parents love you and your relationship is still the same. It might shock you at first, but you realize that's not what makes a family. But this, it was a deeper shock. Everyone everyone I knew who was a believer suddenly felt like a different species, almost. I didn't treat them any differently, but it really felt like we're not speaking the same language anymore. Everything about their life, or most things about their lives, was, dare I say, tainted by religious law or religious ideology in one way or another. A lot of opinions that they had weren't opinions that they had because they arrived at that conclusion or because they think that's actually a good or bad thing. It's because religion says so in one way or another. And it made me question all the opinions that I had too. How much of what I know and do and act is because I was told is the case, whether it's religion or family or culture, all of the above. Um, so it took me a while to reconstruct all of that and gradually figure out who I am. And at no point in that early stage did I figure out that others like me do exist, because I had believed that people left Islam because they were bad people. It was a moral problem, or they left Islam because they wanted to sin, and all of the above. And I knew of examples in, extended family, and so of, you hear these stories and tales of some guy who is now, married to a white girl or something like that. Like that was the stereotypical example in my head of someone who's not even an ex-Muslim. I didn't know that term existed. It was more like he was a bad Muslim. You can't escape the label or classification of a Muslim. You're just a Muslim who's not behaving right. You're judged as someone like that kind of person. They're not, dating a white girl or whatever it is that they're doing that Muslims don't approve of. They're not doing that because they want to give God the middle finger, or they want to give the religion or its adherents the middle finger. I don't know the reasons for doing that. Apparently, maybe they just love the person. But from a believer's point of view, or a lot of the people that I grew up around and knew, it was almost like, again, the egocentric view of life. They're doing it to us somehow. This person is behaving in a bad way to us. And I genuinely believed it for a long time. And that's, throughout all my questioning and realization that there's a lot of issues with the religion itself, let alone the people and how they behave. That's not my basis for whether the religion is true or not. Because there's a possibility that Islam is perfect, but Muslims are not. So I can't blame God for how the people act. But then I realized that people like me do exist, and they've had very similar questions. Some of them had questions I never thought of. Some of them didn't struggle as much as I did. Some of them struggled more. It was a wide variety of this label, ex-Muslim. And their presence online isn't even that ubiquitous or easy to find. Maybe now, if you search ex-Muslim, you'll find more. But at the time, and especially if you don't know the phrase ex-Muslim, where do you start? And gradually, I found myself reading more about those people, and I found some videos of people, ex-Muslims on YouTube. And I kid you not, my first impression was, who are these traitors? Who's paying them to say this? Are they Christian? All the stuff that I'm hearing now from other people, I myself thought. And to make it clear, by the way, if I didn't mention this earlier in the live stream, I am not religious at the moment. I'm not a Christian, as many people theorize. I don't know if there is such a thing as a God. I think that's a man-made concept. I don't positively say there is no creator, the origin of life is random. I don't know how life came to be. But I'm confident that all these stories that we have about what God said and wants are man-made, because I have no evidence to show otherwise. Everything thing we know about what God wants or says has come from a human being. Every single one of them, without exception. Going back to the point, I didn't trust ex-Muslims. I at first I felt like there was something I'm missing. What's there's something wrong here. And then gradually I started to realize that a lot of them seemed very genuine. I mean, I guess most of them were. It's just my bias was to not trust them. And I found many of them who were in the Arabic speaking world, believe it or not, and I found many in the English speaking world. And I found very little intersection between the two worlds. There are ex-Muslim YouTubers who exist. Some of them have disappeared now, maybe because of safety concerns. But there are many who do speak both languages, but not as many as, the intersection it wasn't very big. And I found myself getting into that scene on YouTube, not as a contributor, but as a viewer, and being very dissatisfied. Like a lot of the stuff that was recommended to me by the algorithm and that gradually chained together was atheist destroyed, Muslim destroyed, and all these silly debates. And I think that was around the time that there was a lot of tension between who Farid Responds and Apostate Prophet and a bunch of those people who, Ali Dawa, Muhammad Hijab, all that kind of stuff. And I quickly lost interest in all of that. And I started seeking out more people who were trying to answer my questions or talk to people in a way that I wanted to talk to people. And maybe I'll get to that part of the story in a bit. So let me tell you a little bit about myself more before I get to that part of the story. So like I said, I grew up very shy and non-confrontational, and I think I'm still kind of that way, but not to the same extent. I'm not really shy anymore to, tell someone what I think. I don't go out of my way to find conflict. That still hasn't changed. But I'm a lot less timid than I used to be, thanks to life experience and, many, many hours of actually talking to people on this channel. So I'm very thankful for that. A little bit more about me. I have 2 cats. You almost always see one of them right there. That's Apu. The other one's Iago. He's somewhere around here. I like reading, but I actually hate doing it. Weirdly enough, it takes a lot of energy to get me started on a book. I like sports, but I don't like watching it. I'm full of contradictions. I don't usually enjoy being the center of attention, but I also love making people laugh, and I like thinking of jokes all the time. It's just, I don't know, a way to pass time. I eat a lot, except when I forget to eat, then I don't eat for the entire day. And believe it or not, I enjoy talking very, very much, despite spending hours and hours on every live stream listening to people. The more I listen, the more I feel like I have pent up energy that I want to expend by talking to other people in my personal life. So I had to calibrate so I don't end the live stream and then go chat my friend's ears off for 3 hours about something else. It's a struggle. And I try to be an active listener, despite the urge to butt in and talk and just talk and talk and talk. So it takes a lot of effort for me to be an active listener, but I hope you can notice that I'm doing my best to be patient and attentive to the people who I do talk to. So let's go back to the story of, how I became ex-Muslim, or how I became more specifically a YouTube ex-Muslim, if you want to call it that, or a vocal ex-Muslim. Let me first answer some comments, and then I'll get to that part. Let's take a little break here. Simply a Slave says, is there going to be a stream for Muslims to join? So every Wednesday, I'm going to have a live stream, and usually I'm going to be taking callers from all sorts of backgrounds. Today, I'm not taking callers, but next Wednesday, I will be. Should be around the same time or a little bit earlier next week. It changes every Wednesday, so check in on Thursday. You'll see the stream posted in the upcoming streams section. I came here for a face reveal, but he's not gonna, unfortunately, not yet. And I want to thank the people who have become members recently. I really appreciate Paul Things and Sean B. Let me read some super chats and then I'll get back to the story that I was telling you. So Apollo thinks, very generous of you. Thank you. They say, happy 16 subs, 16K subs, my friend. Your contribution is hugely meaningful to people all around the world. Keep up the amazing work. Well, thank you. I appreciate your words. And thanks for the super chat from Mohsin Malik. Logic also says, keep going. I appreciate it. This is not what super chats are for. So I'm not going to do you the give you the pleasure of reading it out loud, but I just wanted to make it clear. Not only do I not get very political on this channel, also if and when I do, I think there's better ways of expressing how you feel than that. So to make it clear, super chats are not a way to make sure that your comment is going to be read despite, in spite of whatever it says. I still get to be selective. Let's see. Hassan Urwan says, yes, it's like the world was no longer the world I used to inhabit. Everything looked different about the transition from being a believer to leaving. I agree. And this commenter, I'm sorry, I can't read your name at the moment, says, I can relate so much to what Aladdin is saying. I'm in the same boat right now. I've noticed you in the past few live streams. I believe that's a believer, and I relate to a lot of what you said in the comments before, how you feel about the world around you and Islam. And all I can say is I'm glad that you found someone you can relate to, even though we're not on the same page about whether Islam is true or not. I don't really care if that's your conclusion. Are you actually called Aladdin? See, I like to also keep that one vague because maybe it's a pseudonym, maybe it's my actual name hiding in plain sight. Yeah, and Goodnight says, dude's definitely not a troll. Why do Muslims have a hard time accepting that ex-Muslims exist? Did your ancestors not leave Christianity, Judaism, or paganism to become Muslim? I think a lot of people struggle with it because if you accept that someone can honestly, sincerely be a good person who doesn't believe in Islam anymore, then you might have to question the entire religion altogether, which is part of what happened to me. I realized that the narrative that someone who leaves Islam or doesn't believe in it, even they received the perfect message, whatever that is because the shaitan is too powerful over them, or because they want to sin more than anything, or because they're internally dishonest or in denial. I've said this a lot of times before. The word kafir means someone who covers up or conceals something, meaning the truth. So a kafir, an ex-Muslim, knows Islam is the truth but denies it, which is the most ridiculous idea. And in a debate, it's basically accusing anyone who doesn't agree with you of being a liar and a deceiver. No one takes that seriously, but in the in-group, among believers, it seems to make a lot of sense. But hopefully I'm demonstrating to people that, sure, maybe I can come out and give one testimony or one video and tell you, this is my story, and maybe I made it up. Maybe I rehearsed the whole thing. But if you look at my channel, I have over 200 videos, including, I think, streams and shorts, hours and hours and hours of me telling you exactly how I feel and how I think live, in conversations. It's hard to fake all that, and especially for what? Like, I'll get to that later in the live stream, my purpose, my motivation, and my accused purpose and motivation. But yeah. Bro Joan Doe, thanks for the super chat again, says, I respect what you're doing. You don't have a gimmick, just honest conversation. Keep up the good work. I appreciate that. Yeah, I don't think I have a gimmick. All right. And that's something I want to highlight before I get to the rest of the story. Charlie A says, in the beginning of my journey of leaving this religion, I watched Hassan Alwan's channel and I was so shocked that he had the same questions I had and gave great logical reasoning. I forgot to mention that, and I will mention some names in a bit, but I used to watch Hassan Radwan. He's in the live chat right now, by the way, which I'm very grateful for. He's very often here. And it's mind-blowing to me that not only is he a real person, that I was inspired by his words, that I felt comforted that he does exist, because his I feel like he also gave me a sense of comfort, because it's very unlikely that a more mature man than, people in their 20s, maybe people in their 20s are being edgy and trolling, and maybe they're just being contrarians. But I find it highly dubious that someone, at his age, at his stage of life, would be making this up. And he's got a lot more wisdom than we have, presumably, than a lot of us. He spent a lot of time thinking about this. He's very close to the subject, and yet there he is, among the doomed, among the people going to hell. It just didn't make sense to me. So I'm really appreciative of the videos that he has put out there. They were a huge help and comfort for me, and he can't be expected to bear that cross forever. So I'm glad that he gave us a lot of that, and hopefully there will be a lot more people like him going forward. So yeah, I do recommend that you watch his videos if you haven't. All right, so going back to my story, leaving Islam and who I am and my motivation and all that. So this part is about, why am I doing this? So this actually happened by accident. Going back to the story, I was watching this whole dawah, anti-dawah scene, and seeing the amount of gotchas and vitriol and hatred and misrepresentation of ex-Muslims that was as clear as the sun. And honestly, sometimes even in debates, I would dislike the way that the atheists or non-Muslims, whoever it was in the debate, was handling it, or the way that they were tackling the topic. And then sometimes I'd find myself, if I do watch such videos, I find myself almost wanting to scream at my phone or a computer and be like, no, this is what you need to be talking about. This is what I would like you to push. And it felt very entitled of me that I can't tell someone how to operate their platform. I mean, I don't understand how they're doing it. I don't understand the amount of pressure that they're under. So I realized very quickly, okay, well, it's not up to me to tell people exactly how they should talk and what they should engage in. And I still didn't feel motivated to become an ex-Muslim YouTuber or anything of the sort. But I've told this story before, but here's another short version. Someone was trying to dox one of the ex-Muslim YouTubers and do very harmful things with their likeness in a certain forum. So I volunteered to moderate that space so that there would be fewer of these trolls. And then that led me to somehow stopping a thankfully false attempt at doxing another ex-Muslim YouTuber, Abdullah Samir. Turns out the information was not true, but that got me in contact with Abdullah Samir to tell him, friendly ex-Muslim, for those of you who don't know, telling him, hey, someone's trying to dox you. This is the information. He told me, yeah, that this is not true information. And that's when I asked him, can I appear on one of your live streams? Because he was doing a lot of these interviews with, one-on-one ex-Muslims. And I thought, I have some thoughts. I've never spoken about this in public. I had talked to a few friends over the years, not exactly in a straightforward way, saying, I don't believe any of this. I don't know what's going on, but I've tried to breach the topic a lot of times. And I thought it was going to be a great opportunity for me to talk to someone, and, not really thinking it was going to launch my platform or anything like that. I had nothing at the time. And he graciously invited me over to his channel. I put an avatar of Aladdin. I just chose that name, and I said I'll go by Aladdin, and that was my first ever appearance on YouTube. We spoke for a couple of hours, and it was great. It was relieving, and a lot of people in the comments were telling me that they relate to what I'm saying and that I should do this more often. Either I should appear on his channel or I should start my own or something. And I thought, no, that seems like a lot. I don't want to do any of that. Keep in mind, at the time, I had graduated university. I'm working full time. It never crossed my mind that I would ever become a YouTuber or any kind of online personality. And then gradually, friendly ex-Muslim suggested, how about you try TikTok? TikTok is the big new thing. And I did. I tried with, I was wearing a hoodie and a mask, and it was very, very poorly shot and edited, and kind of in a dark room to try to be as anonymous as possible. The first TikTok I ever made was about the story of Ibrahim and his son Ismail, which is a far, far, I don't know what the word is. Like, it's very, very different than the TikToks that I made recently about Ibrahim and Ismail. I was trying to retell the story and make it a little funny, but it was very cringy. And I wonder if I'm gonna think that about my videos in the future, but hopefully not as much. And gradually, I started posting a little bit more to TikTok, trying to see the humor in some of the stories in Islam. And I was getting a huge amount of hate back. Incredible. Like, my channel was always being deleted, reported, all that kind of stuff, on and on and on again. But at some point within all that, I found some success on live streams on TikTok. And the cool thing about live streams on TikTok is, unlike here, um, it suggests the live stream to many strangers who have never come across my channel, and they can very easily join if they have, I think, over 1,000 subscribers or something like that, or followers. So I was finding myself having conversations with random Muslims, I think before even I had call-in shows on YouTube. And I even came across a few of the TikToker Muslims who voluntarily appeared on my live streams. I didn't invite them or anything. I'd be live streaming, and then suddenly everyone's like, "Hey, this guy wants to join. Let him join. Let him join." And I was like, "This seems like a bad idea, but okay." And I've posted those live streams here, like those segments on this channel before, without naming any names. But then quickly, I don't know if it's related to having those conversations or not, I would get a wave of hatred and a wave of reporting, mass reporting. So I found it to be more, for my own peace of mind, and more so I can explain myself better than I do in 30 or 60 seconds, making YouTube videos. Like, the first couple of videos were 2 minutes long or so, where I just, expressed a couple of very brief thoughts. And then gradually I thought, what I want to say about even a single verse cannot fit into 1 minute. Because there's going to be a lot of people who say, but you forgot to mention this, you forgot to mention that, you're deliberately misrepresenting this and that. I felt like I needed more time. It was a lot less adversarial when you can just do it at your own pace on YouTube, and that's what I started doing. And what else happened? And then that's how I met a few other ex-Muslim and non-Muslim YouTubers. Um, like I said, Abdullah Samir gave me a lot of help and guidance in the beginning, and he showed me, how YouTube works and all this kind of stuff. And I had a chat with a couple of chats with the Apostate Prophet, um, Derek from Myth Vision, Alim from Secular Spirit, which, by the way, we have become friends since then. Like, offline, we do talk every now and then about non-channel related things. So it's been very nice, and Infidel Noodle as well. We've streamed a few times together, but it was starting to take a toll on me, especially when I was making, like, I was hosting live streams, and a lot of people are telling me a lot of very difficult, emotionally taxing, difficult things, and it felt like I was torn between my personal life, my professional life, my work career, and the YouTube channel. And I felt like I can't do all three at once, even though I was starting to get a little bit of income from YouTube, which wasn't even that much, but it felt like my life quality was deteriorating very quickly. And a lot of people would give me advice, like, you should do it less, or, just post whenever you feel like it. You don't have to. But at that rate, I'd be posting once every 3-4 months, and it's hard to keep that momentum going. And YouTube doesn't even like, most social media doesn't like when you post once every blue moon. It might work for bigger creators, but if you're a small channel, you need to post more often. And people wanted to call in more often. The more that I had these conversations with believers and ex-Muslims, the more that people told me, I want to join next week. I want to join the next one. And I thought at first, okay, maybe if I start a Patreon like everyone was telling me to do, and start monetizing it a little more, maybe then I can afford to pay someone to help me with the editing or help me with the research or something. But not only was that unfeasible, because I'd basically be giving them all the money that I'm making, which is not that much, it's also very inefficient. Especially when I have a certain vision of what I want a video to look like, and especially when I do my own research and scripting and wording of everything. I'm not gonna go and just read someone else's words. So there's very little that I can outsource, and even then, it was very inefficient and very expensive. And eventually, I felt like I was trying to do too much at the same time. So what would I give up? I didn't want to give up the channel. I felt like I was helping a lot more people with this YouTube channel than I was in my personal life or at work. And eventually, I decided, thanks to the support of a lot of people on this channel, eventually I decided, let me give myself a hiatus from my actual career and let me just focus on YouTube and reading and figuring out other things in my life. Let me just do that for a year or so. And that's what I've been doing since approximately September of last year. And there's a bit of an update. I guess this video is partly an update about that. Let me see if I missed anything that I wanted to talk about. Yeah, so to reiterate, what is the purpose of what I'm doing here? I want to give ex-Muslims a better representation. I mean, the fact that I still have to wear a mask and have to hide my name, and the fact that we face so much backlash in our personal lives and so much legal backlash in many countries is something that needs to change. And very often, part of why that doesn't change is because a lot of Muslims who are otherwise good people who would never wish harm on anyone, the idea that they have of an ex-Muslim or a kafir or a critic of Islam or whatever category of other that they have is not because they met someone like that or they've seen them in the media. They've seen representations of them. They've seen what other believers say about them. But there are so many Muslims who have spoken to me. They didn't leave Islam, and that's not really the goal. But they now see us in a different light, and they're then more likely, hopefully, in the future, to stop such hatred and actions against ex-Muslims. So I think it's a very important step to accurately represent people who have left Islam, to humanize us, and to actually convey our thoughts ourselves, not through the mouths of believers who say, well, they left for this and that reason. And that still happens, in every khutbah and every da'wah channel. They tell their followers more about us and our reasoning and our motivation and our thoughts than they listen to us. Hopefully that'll change. And I found that this kind of format, this space, this representation helps a lot of people who are in a similar boat as myself and people who are in much worse conditions than myself. I can't personally help everyone who's in a bad situation that has to do with religion or otherwise. I can't personally change their lives, but if I can somehow give them some reassurance that they're not alone, if I can give them a space to talk about it, if I can give them representation, so hopefully more people in their lives can step up and defend them or help them, it's if I could do all that, then I will. And that's my motivation for doing what I'm doing. And let me give you some update about my life since I started doing YouTube full time, and then I'll get back to something else about that. I've made changes in my life, some personal changes that have to do with religion and things of the nature, some that don't. And I've tried to stretch this break that I'm taking from my career for as long as possible. Obviously, the more monetary support that I get from the channel, mainly patrons and YouTube members, that's a lot more than YouTube revenue, ad revenue. The more that I get that, the longer that I can do this for. But so far, it's afforded me a lot of breathing room to not only figure out the channel, but figure out myself. So it's helped me in many ways, despite the toll that the channel can sometimes take on me. I think it's been a positive change. I'm doing a lot better personally. Like, it's even afforded me more time to eat better, sleep better, and exercise more. And I do miss the structure. I do miss the camaraderie of, being in an office sort of thing. It's a struggle to not have that, but at the same time, it's nice to have control over my schedule, and I'm still trying to figure that out. I haven't found the right balance yet. As you might have noticed, I don't publish a video every week like I hope to, but I'm trying to make sure that everything that I publish, I don't regret publishing, if that makes sense. I fact check a lot of things. I fact check everything that I'm gonna cite, and I also make sure that I don't put out bad opinions. And yeah, but despite feeling like I have more control, it does feel like I'm out of sync with the rest of society. I know this might seem like a very first world problem issue, but as a YouTuber or freelancer, sometimes you're working late hours by yourself, while everyone else is doing things. Sometimes you're free when everyone else is busy. So it's been a bit of a struggle, but overall, it's been a positive change in my life, and I'm very, very grateful to all the supporters who have enabled me to do that. There's a lot of moral support from the beginning, a lot of messages that people have sent and continue to send, telling me how this channel has affected them positively and how much they appreciate the work that I've done. And they're and it felt very empowering too, because for the longest time I felt like I can't do this. Like, I'm not actually making a good difference in the world, but I was proven wrong by people who told me otherwise. And now let's talk a little bit about money. So many supporters so many people donate sporadically. Like, someone would, check out my PayPal link and then send something, and just all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, like now I feel less anxious for the week, given this donation. Sometimes it's smaller donations on YouTube, or sometimes it's people becoming members or patrons. And some of the contributors on Patreon, it's eye-watering, like how much they believe in me, how much they believe that I'm actually doing good work, that they would give money to a stranger. Like, some of them, if a few of my patrons of the top donators pulled out, I would have to shut down what I'm doing a lot sooner. As in, like, I would have to stop what I'm doing a lot sooner. So I'm not even financially secure at the moment, to be honest. I have planned for this. I constantly, every month, I'm already dipping into savings that I have budgeted for this. So to make this very clear, I'm extremely grateful for all the support that I'm getting, and I have already factored in that during this year or two that I'm trying to make this channel a full-time thing, I've already factored in that I will be spending money from my savings. So people who think that this is a money-generating machine, no, this channel has and will continue to cost me money for a long time till I break even completely. And that's okay. That's not a plea for more. I want it to come organically. Whoever wants to donate, whoever wants to help, I really appreciate it. But I just want to make it clear, this is not the cash cow that people think that it is. Myself included, I knew going into this that this wasn't gonna make me any richer. This wasn't gonna replace my full-time career job. I have kind of taken a demotion in my standard of living just so I can do this, because that's how much I believe in it. So the accusations of doing this for money, they don't hurt me, but they just surprise me. It's, why would I spend money on something? Like, why would I do this if I'm actually spending money? I'm not making money. All that aside, let me see what else. So far on the trajectory that we're headed to, I think I can continue to do this for at least 6 more months. We'll see if that changes. I'll keep you guys posted. But I couldn't have done any of this at all without the people who have supported me so far, not just monetarily, but all the messages that I've received, all the comments, and I appreciate every single one of them. And I know there's a lot of people who would like to help even more monetarily, but can't. And I always tell them, please don't stretch yourself thin. Like, it's beneficiary. It's benefiting me enough that you're commenting, that you're liking, that you're helping boost my channel to more viewers, because that's ultimately the goal here. And on that note, it's partly the motivation, but not really. I have a second channel that I've promoted a few times here, but it's completely separate from what I do here. It's called Aladdin Reads, and it's on my YouTube channel in one of the sections called Other Channels. And on that one, I just read stories. And lately, I've been writing my own stories. I would sometimes use AI to help me generate the skeleton of the story, and then I would fill in all the details and um, write it all myself. And there's one that I'm hoping to publish again tomorrow, but I'm starting to publish to that channel more often. And I want it to be a safe haven for those who want to take a break from more taxing, more traumatizing topics on this channel. Like if you just want to hear me talk, you just want to hear me read something that is not going to make you feel stressed. It's not going to make you question life or question anything of that nature. I have that second channel for that reason. It's like an oasis basically for the viewers of this channel and for the general public. So I'm hoping to have that be eventually a secondary like revenue stream. Currently doesn't make any money at all, but maybe in the future that can get me some more money so that I can continue to do this channel. That is my main goal. My main goal when it comes to money on that other channel, it's just a means to an end, because I like what I do there, but I prefer what I do here. So please do check it out if you would like to. That would help me out. You know, just getting it, spreading it out there, that would really help. Money aside, how's life? I feel like it's trending upwards for me, thankfully, since starting this channel for many reasons unrelated to the channel as well. I'm getting more into a rhythm. I've met a lot of people and I've had a lot of experiences that I could not have had if I didn't have control over my schedule. And I'm still exploring new avenues in my professional life. So, you know, I have a way out. But to tell you the truth, this has been a lot more fulfilling than anything that I've done, you know, than any other job that I've done before. Because I can actually interact with people and I can see how much it's affecting them positively. So as long as I can do this, I will continue to. Even if it means that I have to spend all my savings, I cannot be more grateful. This has been and will continue to be an adventure for me. In a way, I found some meaning in life of, as I've mentioned before, part of my moral system, or what do you think is right? What do you think is wrong? Why do you live at all? I think that minimizing harm and maximizing benefit or happiness is one of the cornerstones of my morality system, if I even, you know, define it in solid terms. And this allows me to help a lot more people and minimize harm and spread happiness a lot more than anything else that I've done. So I thank you all for affording me the opportunity to do that. And to get to the next point, when will I end this channel? When am I gonna, you know, call it a day and leave? If I completely disappear and you can't find my videos, then something has went wrong. Because my plan is, even when I'm done doing what I'm doing, I'll leave the videos on for as long as I can, because people can still find them and they can still benefit the same way. I will stop contributing to this channel if I feel like I have nothing more to contribute. If I feel like everything that I want to say, or everything that I can do, or the way that I listen or talk to people, if I feel like any of that is already being replicated elsewhere better, or if there's more people who do this kind of thing, if it's not really a problem anymore to leave Islam, if it's not really a problem anymore to object to things in Islam, if I am not needed, if I'm not relevant, then I will happily stop doing this. If ex-Muslims have a variety of representations and platforms, then I wouldn't be doing this, because as much as I like doing this, as much as I love doing this, it is taxing, and it's dangerous sometimes. Luckily, so far, you know, I've been physically unscathed, and I hope that continues to be the case. But I feel like as I continue to grow my platform and contribute in the areas that I think are lacking, for example, da'wah versus, you know, non-Muslim debates and conversations, I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done there. And I have my sights on that, and soon enough I will be contributing in that space. But that comes with a wave of negativity and a wave of danger that I understand people before me, like Apostate Prophet, for example. I really empathize with his struggle with that crowd. Um, I know how taxing that could be. So if I'm already feeling it, then I can't imagine when I get to that stage how that'll be. So I'm trying to fortify my position by setting up a good foundation, by avoiding things that are way too controversial so that I don't get in, the wrong pocket of YouTube. Most of my followers, I believe, are people who can very strongly relate to what I'm saying. A lot of people are strangers, and that's okay. I always welcome them. But thankfully, I don't have a huge following of people who are just in it for the drama, or they're in it for, um, the atheist versus Muslim stuff. I don't like that crowd, and that's why it's been a slow but steady growth in this channel. And that's the kind of audience and growth that I want. But once I expand into a bigger audience and into, the more combative, more argumentative sort of conversations, I have a feeling that there's going to be a wave of all sorts of viewers that weren't exactly what I was anticipating. So just putting it out there, like, this is why I have this video called Apostate Aladdin EXPOSED. Hopefully that crowd, whenever they want to seek some exposition about me, they come across this live stream and they understand who I am and why I'm doing this. Yeah, one thing I wanted to say is, okay, here's something that I want to point out that is pretty much what I'm talking about here. Nasiha says, I hate how a couple of your most popular videos are the ones about Mo Hijab and Ali Dawah. I agree with that, and I've said that so many times. I might have even mentioned on streams before. I've said that to people offline. I don't like that. Like, if I want growth, I can get to 20,000 subscribers in 2 weeks right now if I make 3 more videos about Mo Hijab, Ali Dawah, all that crowd, Farid Responds, all those people. But a lot of that viewership is not for the right reasons. A lot of that viewership taints the comments section and makes people who enjoy being here feel unsafe being here. And I don't want to get the wrong kind of following. So I've been trying to avoid that topic, but every now and then I feel like there's something that I really want to comment on. But if I really wanted the attention, if I really wanted the viewership and the crowds following me, I would just talk about them all the time. So that's not to say that anyone who talks about them or makes videos about them is trying to get attention from the wrong people, because someone has to tackle them. Someone has to engage with them somehow. It's just that I've avoided doing it for a long time till I built a more solid platform, so I can then, not only with more experience talking to people, but with a more solid following, my channel is better defined before I step into that territory. I hate that my most popular videos are those. So I urge you to watch all my other videos if you're someone who came across my channel because of those, because I put a lot more effort into those other videos. But it's just how humanity is. People always like drama. They like arguments. They like to root for one side over the other. And it's hard to do that when a video is just about a funny story in the Quran or something of the sort. It doesn't vilify anybody. It doesn't put me in a hero versus anti-hero kind of fight. So hopefully people will eventually catch on to my style of doing things, and I'd rather slowly build up a following that way than to get the wrong kind of following. Let's see. Yeah, and like I said, again, I have that other channel that I recently started posting more often to, and if you like that kind of thing, I do urge you to check it out, Aladdin Reads. And I have a lot more planned for this channel. It just takes a lot of time to do things. So bear with me as I continue to grow and hopefully improve my content. And hopefully if you go back through my videos and watch the oldest stuff and you watch now, you'd see a lot of improvements. So I appreciate you for sticking with me for that long, and I promise you more to come. And hey, here's the thing about this channel. It's kind of a stop along your journey. So I expect that there's a lot of people who will come, spend some time here, watch some videos, and then leave. And I appreciate that. I want that to happen, because I don't want you to be stuck in this conversation forever unless it interests you for some reason and it's not really taking a toll on you. I'm happy when people take what they need, they get the comfort they need, and then they move on. and that's the goal here. So that's also what makes a channel like this difficult to maintain is I'm hoping for people to stop watching. So how do I continue to grow an audience and continue to monetize it so I can continue doing it? It's difficult, but it's a challenge that I am willing to take on. And let me read some comments right now. Wooly says, do you have any specific videos you'd like to make about certain topics? Dozens and dozens. I'm currently working on an animated video, again, about Prophet Muhammad and Allah. And I'm surprised to find out today that the last one I made was 10 months ago. It felt like not that long ago, but it was. So I have a lot that I'm working on. Amira says, I'm interested in what you studied at university. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that just because it might help people narrow down, my identity. So I would have to keep that one. Yeah, we'd have to keep that one a secret, unfortunately. Saad says, well, you helped me get at peace with my apostasy, so you get that to feel good about. Well, thank you. I do feel good about that. I am glad I did help. Zaid says, I personally don't feel like it's a net negative when your videos are about these gain traction. It forces Muslims to come in terms with the fact that not all ex-Muslim personalities are hostile and hateful. If you mean videos about dawah people, that's true. But unfortunately, a lot of the, and I'm going to say it very blatantly here, a lot of the people who watch those videos are coming from the Christianity versus Islam crowd. And that is a crowd I don't want to get in the middle of that, because I have to always remind them, look, what I'm talking about is about principle. It's not implicitly saying Christianity is so good because Islam has bad representatives and it sucks in these ways. So it gets tiring to have to repeat that and to have to make it clear that it's not a platform for them to spread their good word, because that gets a little annoying. But yes, it does give me more exposure to believers who eventually will see how human we actually are. A Trex says, it's a little more difficult to watch a video criticizing the actual content of Islam, but much easier to criticize the bad guy. And that's, again, why I don't like to make all of my videos about the bad guy, because it's easy to then associate the bad guy with all believers. But I try to use other, not tricks, but techniques to get people to engage with the point, aside from just making a video. Like, did you see how horrible this thing in the Quran is? I try to make it into a story, into an animation maybe, to show you the same thing. Basically, it's a horrible thing, but if you laugh about it at the same time, maybe you'd be more likely to engage with it. Seed of Iblis says, the first video I ever came across from Apostate Aladdin was the sixth pillar of Islam. That one resonates with a lot of people. Oh yeah, I missed that video. Sometimes I watch my old videos to just see it, because I criticize myself a lot. I think, what could I have done better? It's not really a good approach to it, but I remember that I've wanted to say this stuff in that video for a long time, that whataboutism seems to be in discourse about Islam, the sixth pillar of Islam. Every time I want to talk about anything, there's, what about this person? What about Christianity that has worse things? What about this? What about that? So I hope this catches on, that people start saying whataboutism is the sixth pillar of Islam. Until that changes, once that dissolves in the discourse, you don't see whataboutism in discourse about Islam, then it's no longer true. Yeah. Well, thanks, Oddity, for letting me know. Sometimes I get the timestamps wrong on these live streams, but I will, I'll try to fix it at some point soon. Let's see, what else am I missing? I might have missed some comments here and there. Yeah, I might have missed some comments. Okay. Again, I forgot. You told me how to pronounce your name, but I already forgot. I Love You Allah video was one that hooked me onto this channel. So for now, that is, well, thank you. I'm glad that you like it. That is the one video that is the trailer of my channel. So every time you open my channel, that's the one that auto plays. And it's one that I think it came to me when I was staring at a fire. And this is something that I want to quickly touch on. One of the reasons why I'm still doing this is because people don't realize how much Islam and religion in general and things that were indoctrinated into you stick with you for so long. I was just having a good time looking at a fire, and then I started thinking about Jahannam. Not that, oh, I'm scared I'm going to go there, but what an unpleasant thought. I forgot for a second, I forgot about Islam and I forgot about this whole paradigm. Now I have to think again because I saw a fire. I have to think about all the people who believe they're going to hell and they feel guilty and like sinners, and all the people who are being guilted with hell and scared with it. And it was just a lot to think about. And it got me thinking, if I could speak to the inventor of this idea, to Allah himself, what would I say? And I think I filmed 10 minutes of just the fire, and I thought, I'm going to use this as my backdrop for what I'm saying. And I actually made the video and I showed it to, I think it was Friendly Ex-Muslim, and I said, what do you think about that? And he said, it's good, but I would suggest that you use different backgrounds than just one fire. And that's when it came to me, and yeah, so I'm very happy with that video. Yeah. What else? All right, I think, yeah, I'll take some questions, I suppose. Now that I'm done with telling you everything that I felt like telling you, I might have missed a thing or two, but I'll take some questions for 5 more minutes or so, and then I will end the live stream. Oh, and one suggestion that I've been getting a lot, but I really haven't decided on yet. A lot of people have been wanting a Discord server, and a Discord server for my channel, and my hesitation is that I would need to do a lot of work to make sure that it's safe, to make sure that it's moderated, because it would feel like it's almost like my responsibility personally that anything that happens on that server, like say someone tries to dox people or harm them or share something harmful there, I would feel like that responsibility falls on me. So it's a lot of work that I'm still debating whether I can or want to do. But people have been suggesting maybe I can have a Discord server just for patrons and YouTube members. So if that's something that interests you, please do let me know in the comments so I know that there might be interest for that kind of thing. And lately I've been doing something where I do have live streams every week now, but I also have a monthly call for patrons and YouTube members, which is not live streamed anywhere. It's still kind of a similar, no, not even a similar format. Everyone joins at once and we're just chatting in a big room, and it goes on for a couple of hours. So I've done that for a few months, 2 or 3 months so far, and I will continue to do that. So if that's something that interests you, consider becoming a patron or YouTube member. Let's read some comments. So Mark says, what is your favorite comfort food? That varies. I find a comfort food and I stick to it for a few weeks, and then I switch to something else. Recently, it's been a certain brand of chips that I can't tell you the brand, otherwise you might know where I live. And before that, there was a phase where it was anything in an air fryer. So air fryer food was a comfort food of mine. And one that has always been a comfort food is Indomie. For those of you who know it, it's like ramen noodles, but from Indonesia. It was very common in the Middle East and still is being sold in a lot of places. So those are some of my comfort foods. Charlie says, my question is, how do you deal with your identity as an ex-Muslim in the West? I find myself embarrassed to say I'm Middle Eastern, as most people associate me with the religion. So I can't tell you where I am exactly, but where I am, I just behave like myself. If someone assumes or asks me if I'm Muslim, I say, no, I'm not. I'm not religious, or I'm not a Muslim, and then I move on. And there were situations where people would assume things about me because they would assume, for example, if I look and have a Muslim name, then I probably am so and so and so, and or hold such beliefs or values, and they would probably most likely be right if I was a believer. But a lot of people do try to get to know you for who you are, so I just try to be myself. But it still is sort of it's sort of a burden that I have to bear still, that of course I have to bear the burden of racism every now and then, and also like, for example, say I live in a place where I'm not the majority race. If I was a member of the majority race, I wouldn't have to worry every day, are they assuming that I am, that I'm Muslim, for example? Are they assuming that I have this quality or that quality? Do they assume that about every Muslim? I don't know. There's a lot to think about day to day that I wish I didn't have to think about. I wish I could just live. And very often I find myself doing just that, just living. So yeah, just try to be yourself. And if asked, or if you feel like someone is presuming certain things or trying to accommodate for you being a believer, just tell them straight up, I'm not a believer. Roxanne says, did you ever go down the modernist progressive Islam route before leaving Islam? By the way, I have been watching your videos and I've never wanted to. I never wanted to watch my videos or never wanted to go down that route. I've toyed with it for a bit, and I've spoken to people from that background, and I found myself I found the more traditionalist and the more literalist interpretations to be more convincing, because the moderate and progressive interpretations are implying that not only is most of humanity wrong about what God said, but most Muslims are wrong about what God said. And that would just imply that God is utterly incompetent. Like, the guy took so many attempts to send us one message that is incorruptible. And even that one, most Muslims don't understand, that we now have to incorporate values from um, from other cultures and non-religious sources, and then convince ourselves that Islam meant that all along. It felt like such a stretch to me, and it felt that it just didn't feel convincing. It felt like if I was going to be convinced of anything, the literal interpretation made a lot more sense. Yeah, so I hope that answers that question. I suppose if it was more convincing, then I might have not left religion, but I don't think it even begins to answer also the bigger theological questions. It's not just about, oh, this is a bad event that happened in Islam or a bad thing that Islam condones. There are bigger questions to ask than just what progressives can explain away. Yeah. So I do get a lot of questions about family, and um, to give you a general answer, I don't speak a lot about family on this channel, about my family, because like I said, if someone does find out my identity, whatever I say about my family, good or bad, might be used against them. So say, for example, I say, yeah, my family knows about what I do and they're very, very supportive and all that kind of stuff. Then if someone ever finds my identity, they might start harassing my parents and tell them, how could you, how could you have such a kafir son? How could you be so tolerant? And then the other way around, if I tell people, yeah, my family wasn't accepting and all that kind of stuff, I worry that someone might still reach out to them and harass them for that kind of thing. So I just keep that very vague, unfortunately. What else? Raja says, how did you find courage to finally leave Islam? Let me think about how to answer that question, because I'm inclined to think that I wasn't courageous because it took me so long, but that would be very unfair to myself. It does take some courage. I think I couldn't have done it without reassurance from other people. In my personal life, there weren't many people to give me that reassurance. I mean, there were non-Muslims who could, reassure me and tell me they support me and all that, but it's not the same thing. I think a lot of reassurance came from people, like I said earlier, like Hassan Adwan making his videos, and other people online telling me that they exist and they think similarly. They think similarly. So hopefully I'm doing the same for other people. That's part of why I'm doing this, so that people don't just have to muster all the courage and brute force their way through independence and finding that reassurance all by themselves. So I get this kind of question a lot. Sorry, I can't read your name at the moment. Artery Vein says, what advice could you give someone who is non-religious but has fallen in mutual love with a Muslim, asking for a friend? Oh, that's tough, especially if I don't know the person. If you're a male or a female, that makes a big difference. For example, if you're a non-Muslim female, then a Muslim male is allowed to marry you if you're a Christian or Jewish person, even on paper. But then you have to wonder, like, what do they believe in? What are their values? What do they, you have to have a conversation with them. That's for sure. You have to ask them, what do you expect of me in the future? Do you expect me to adhere to your faith more? If we have kids, do you expect them to adhere to your faith? There's a lot of conversations that need to be had, and a lot of assurance and a lot of trust. And you have to have those before you get too involved, regardless of your gender. it's difficult. I'll just say that. And that's one reason why I really wanted to resolve my position on religion before I got into a serious or long-term relationship. Not that I hadn't been trying, but I realized, okay, I'm at a phase where now would be, the real deal. And I wouldn't want to be with someone who's more of a believer than I am if that means that it will affect their quality of life and mine. So it's a lot to think about, and it's a lot to talk to them about. You have to ask them direct and honest questions. You can't walk on eggshells around this topic. You have to ask them very straight questions about their values and what they believe is going to happen in the future, and get reassurances from them, and ask them, even if you want to ask them about their position on certain moral differences, that's important to know before you get in too deep. That's my opinion. So, commenter again. Sorry, for the third time, I forgot how to pronounce your name. One thing that puzzles me is the number of intelligent people who are believing Muslims who don't have doubts like I do. That makes me think there's something they know that I don't. Did you ever feel this? The entire time, I felt like I was missing something, and even made me question myself. People who were, I never thought of myself as a super intelligent person, but there were some people who are clearly achieving less in school, for example, or I didn't see myself as better than them in any way, but I can clearly see that, at least in the metric of studying and figuring out complex problems and things like that, I was doing better. Yet somehow they were a lot more confident in their faith, and they were a lot more certain, and they had, clear explanations to them. And it made me question myself a lot. Like, am I really so far behind everybody? But I don't think I don't think intelligence has to do with it that much. There are a lot of intelligent people who, to this day, get roped into a lot of schemes and cults, and and maybe even they don't really see a moral issue that you're struggling with, because they haven't had your experiences to make them face such situations. So it's a lot more complex than intelligence. That's not really a metric of anything. So don't let that get in the way or make you doubt yourself. Apollo Things says it's pronounced marvelous. Yes, thank you. Finally. Yeah. I think I have answered a bunch of questions. I could do this all day, but I feel like I have to make this live stream short enough that people aren't dissuaded from clicking on it. So an hour, 20 something minutes is pretty short by my channel standards, apparently. So to remind you again, I have a second channel that you might want to check out. Don't bring any religion stuff into there. It's strictly non-religion speak, and it's supposed to be a calm, relaxing space. And I also have live streams every week, every Wednesday. Just check on Tuesdays to see what time it's going to be. So next time, it's going to be around the same time that this one started, maybe a little bit earlier. Again, I'm really glad that you were able to join me today for this live stream. I'm glad I'm able to do a live stream like this one. And hopefully soon enough, we'll have another one, something different for 30,000 subscribers, maybe. Thank you all once again. I really don't know what else to say aside that I'm thankful for this opportunity, and I hope that I've given you enough information about me so that you get to know me a little bit better. If you'd like to know me even more, join my live streams, chat with me, and maybe you'll get to ask any more questions you have there. So without further ado, I hope you all have a great rest of your day or night. And as always, think critically and think for yourself.